to the Not Just Leadership podcast hosted by the Global Institute for Leadership. My name's Dominic, and thanks again for tuning in. Today is episode number 13, and it's great to be getting really into the podcast now. There's been a number of episodes, different people we've interviewed. Really enjoying this journey of podcasting and sharing on different topics about leadership, entrepreneurship, and interviewing some really fantastic people from predominantly the Pacific Islands and Latin America, which is the regions we're focusing on at the moment with our guests. And in the past episodes, we've talked about things like excellence, communication, courage, victimization, and looking at those inner foundations that really shape how we lead. Last week's episode was filmed from Honiara, Solomon Islands, and so I really enjoyed that one, taking the podcast off-site and overseas. So thanks to Triana for sharing with me that conversation and reflecting on her journey in Nauru and the Pacific. The week before, we were in Cairns filming an episode on victimization. That was a little bit of a interesting experience because I had a wardrobe malfunction, had technical malfunction, had a number of issues, and the content ended up only being about 14 minutes long. So my shortest episode, but I didn't want to let perfection get in the way of production, and we got the episode out then. And this has been a really wonderful journey, podcasting and just trying to release an episode every week. I've been really consistent in following that pattern. It hasn't always been easy. And today I'm filming on the topic of time. And I guess coming back from the Pacific recently, it's nice to kind of reflect on how time works across different cultures, and how we manage and value time, and how we allow it to shape our perspective in leadership and in life. And at the end of the day, the fundamental fact is everyone has the same 24 hours in the day. Everyone has 7 days a week. How we use that time and use those hours differs, and obviously produces different results. So in our lifespan, we're going to live, with modern medicine, and if we have access to those medical resources and facilities, we're going to live for longer and longer, 80, 90, 100 plus years. And I think particularly when you're starting out on your professional career and when you're a young person, you can definitely get stuck in this mindset of feeling like you're wasting time, particularly if you worked 6 months in a job that you didn't necessarily like, or you did an internship and it wasn't really your vibe. But I think we need to flip the conversation and change our mindset and look at those experiences as learnings. People might spend years learning to do something, and then the job market changes and they need to, upskill or reskill. But at the end of the day, you still have those skills and you still have those experiences. Nothing's taking away, that from you. And so really thinking about valuing the time we spend on things and not necessarily discounting or discrediting that if it doesn't necessarily go our way, or if we change careers or don't necessarily use that experience directly in a job. We inevitably have grown from those learnings. And I think we often also obsess about productivity and milestones and goals and things like that, and achieving things in a certain time. But time is definitely something that we need to steward and look after, not necessarily control. Okay, you can't control everything in life. You can, you can control your time to a certain extent. There's always external factors that happen. We need to allow for contingency, emergency. You can't just schedule yourself back to back 24/7. So really thinking about how we steward our time is what I wanted to bring up into today's episode. And so I've got a few things to share with you today, reflecting on time and time pressure, my experiences, with time in the Pacific, with time management, and how we can approach our time with clarity and intention. So let's start off with, I guess, our relationship with time, both as a mindset and a structure. And I think definitely time in society today, particularly here in Australia, it's very fast, it's very urgent, achievement focused, and we measure a lot of things in deadlines and in timelines. And then that's great because that provides structure to projects, that provides structure to society, where you can, achieve things within a certain period. And we also, I think, fear wasting time, like I mentioned early. If you're someone that struggles with maybe your age, or viewing your age as being too old, one person's content I really encourage you to watch is Gary V. I've been watching him for probably over a decade now, and he's very big on looking at our age, and kind of flipping it and flipping the mindset about that. And if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s and beyond, it's still very young in the term, the lifespan of our life here on Earth. And people might say, "Oh, it's easy for you to say that you're 24 years old," but this is actually a mindset that I want to carry into my 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I don't want to view myself as old in those circumstances, because, like I said, modern medicine's developing. We're living longer than ever. You can achieve a lot in a few years. You can achieve tremendous amount of things in a decade of your life, and that decade could be your 60s. That decade could be your 20s. You could achieve so much in that decade, depending on how you apply yourself and use your time. Many people make it, so to speak, at various different ages. I mean, Gary V, he's now in his 40s. He was working, restocking the shelves with wine in a winery, in a cellar, for many years, throughout his 30s, and not everyone achieves this peak of finance and job titles in their 20s or 30s. So we need to, I guess, take ourselves on this journey and be in it for the long game. In any project I'm a part of, or particularly volunteering, I do like to dedicate a long period of time to that. There's a number of organizations now that I've been volunteering for 5-6 years plus, and it completely changes your approach to, I think, initiatives and I guess just, in general, in terms of delivering programs for communities. Because when you're committing yourself to an organization for a long period of time, I think in volunteering is a specific case, because jobs and things might be a little bit different. But particularly when you're committing yourself to volunteering, because you're committing yourself to those communities, and to giving back to them over a sustained long period of time. And so in a 6 or 12 month period, if you don't necessarily deliver as many programs as you had planned or as you had set as goals, it doesn't really matter in a sense. Like, it does, because you want to deliver as much output as possible for those people that you're working with. But at the same time, that, okay, another year's just around the corner. This is just the 1 year of many years of me doing this work. And if you're setting yourself up for a career in a specific region or a specific work sector, you can afford to take a little bit of a step back and think, okay, these 12 months, sure, I didn't hit X, Y, and Z, but I did do A, B, C, and that's taking me on the way to X, Y, Z. So we definitely fear wasting time, and I think that can be a dangerous mindset. Of course, we need to value every moment and live in the present, and live with joy and live with peace. But we don't want to get into this mindset of fear, because I think that's dangerous, and that actually takes away our time, because we spend more time fearing than doing. And so we can constantly waste our time on comparison, distraction, and anxiety about the future. So I do challenge you to think about, if you were 90 and you looked back and thought, okay, from 31 to 32, maybe I didn't do much during that year, but look at the growth I experienced, or the relationships, or the lessons I learned. And by the time you get to that age, you won't feel like you've lost that time. You'd be happy for spending that year doing another project, or maybe starting a family, or maybe just taking some time off to reflect and recharge. So I think looking, across our lifespan, we can get really caught up in, 2025 was, didn't achieve what I wanted to do. There's so much more to do. Yeah, that's great. But you've got 2026, you've got 2027, you've got 2028, you've got decades and decades to come. So you will achieve those goals if you, stay motivated and develop good habits. But we can't really beat ourselves up if we don't achieve it all at once. So I want to ask the question, are you living on time schedule, or are you living on your schedule of purpose? We want to bring everything back to what our calling is, and center it on our purpose and our identity. So if you're living on the time schedule, you're just doing things at certain times because you have to. Is that aligned with your purpose, or is that purely just aligned with, I guess, your job or what you have to do, not what you want to do and what you want to achieve? And I want to move on to a little bit of a personal story. I've mentioned I was just in Solomon Islands and got back last weekend and filmed the episode there last week. But definitely working across different cultures as well can help, I guess, bring a healthier attitude towards time. I think here in Australia, there's definitely many things about time that I do appreciate. Being someone who's highly organized and motivated and really good with my time management, I do appreciate how, things do stick to a certain schedule here. But sometimes it can be a downfall, and we can kind of block out or lose sight of opportunities for human connection, opportunities for building those friendships, and also not being too harsh on ourselves as well when things don't really stick to a perfect time, because nothing's perfect. And so definitely from my involvement in the Pacific, the time does feel slower. It's that's a well-known concept of island time. But the interesting thing about time is it's linked to relationships, and the relationships there are very personal, and just the society there is relational. It's based on relationships. It's not necessarily based on transactions or being transactional. And so, you start events or you start meetings when everyone's in the room, not necessarily right on the hour when the clock strikes the hour. You find that you go into deeper conversations with people, and you do talk more about life's challenges, about your goals and ambitions, because you don't feel pushed to necessarily, I need to do something. I was talking to someone, at the hotel, and ended up, I think, talking to them for, must have been maybe 40 minutes. I was just planning on just saying hi and then going and actually recording a podcast. But yeah, just struck up a conversation, and just one thing led to the next. And before I know it, it was already past 10 p.m. at night. And I was like, okay, I need to head off now. I've got some things to do. But it just really struck me how when you allow that space, when you allow that, connection, you really develop things at your own pace, and you don't necessarily worry too much about running a bit over or getting to bed a little bit later, because you develop that great conversation with someone, you learnt a lot, and you develop that connection. And so slowing down, in a sense, isn't actually about being lazy. It's more about being aware. And like I said, I do appreciate when things, when you have a time and you can stick to them, and that works in certain settings. There's things that need to be done in certain times. That's how life works. And then I think we can also learn from other cultures where they do just take a little bit of a step back, and they do, focus more on community and relationships. And I think that can bring a real clarity to your work and to your projects, and in leadership as well. But I don't think one system or the other is perfect. I think we can learn from both and learn from each other, and have a healthy view of time. So I want to talk about using time and time management with intention, and a few key points about how, as effective leaders, we can approach our time. And so number one is priorities over tasks. So not everything we do deserves equal attention. We can get stuck and caught in, a long list of tasks, but it's really about prioritizing what needs to be done here and now, particularly prioritizing, if there's something for your job, then you need to do that. That's your job. And so I think learning to prioritize tasks will really help you, because it means you just get the most important thing done and out of the way. And then you can move on to the more mundane things after that. And this is something that you can prioritize in your work life, but also in your personal life as well. The other point number 2 is margin matters. Okay, the margins. Okay, spending time, giving time for reflection, rest, and thinking. That does matter. We can't just be going flat out all the time. We do need to give time for reflection, rest, and thinking. And so I think priorities over tasks and the margins matter in the sense of giving ourselves time and space to think, to reflect, are just 2 really, really important points when we're thinking about time management. The other point is structure helps you stay free. Okay, so structure is giving you purpose and giving you, I guess, guardrails in what you do. And then that, I think, can create flexibility, because what you can do is when you're structuring or scheduling your calendar, you can actually purposely leave days where you don't have anything on. And that creates this essential flexibility that you need in your week. I like to, for example, do a lot of my meetings on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. I still have meetings on Thursdays and Fridays, but I avoid filling up those days with meetings, because I like to just get through work, and I like to, not get too bogged down in having a lot of meetings and disrupting my day. So creating that structure actually can give you a lot of freedom and flexibility, because you can deliberately program things in certain days and at certain times, and then deliberately leave other days free for whatever might come up. Maybe you need to go to a meeting at that time. Great. You've got your calendar open. Maybe you need to do something personal. Maybe you need to go exercise. Maybe you need to go to a doctor's appointment. You've got that flexibility there because you've created this structure. So I think that's a really interesting concept. That structure helps you stay free, and it gives you that essential flexibility. And number 4, this is a challenging one, but say no wisely. So every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. If you're taking on more roles and responsibilities, more volunteer roles, more gigs and projects, you're actually saying no to something else. So it might be your family, it might be your relationships, it might be your health. Maybe you're working so much that you're not prioritizing eating well and exercising. And so we really need to learn to say no, because that really, everything takes up time. And when you say no, you give yourself more time for other things. It's definitely something that I've been learning to do. It's something that a lot of us aren't necessarily that good at. But once you learn to say no, just this week I had a great example where I had someone call me and offer me, another volunteer role, really quite a prestigious one, and would be really an honor to fulfill that role. But I said no for the time being because I felt like I couldn't give it my all, and that doesn't sit right with me, particularly with my spirit of excellence. And I knew if I said yes to that, then it would take away time from other things, maybe less time to do my podcast, less time to spend with family. And so saying no is really, really important in terms of our time management. And so I think we've got to be careful not to get stuck in the minute details. Like when we break it down to every single minute, what am I doing? You restrict yourself. There's no room for growth. So you definitely have that structure and have those times that you're working on specific priorities, not tasks. And then also give yourself that structure where you don't have anything scheduled, so that you create this sense of flexibility, creativity, room for growth. And I think that will really help you as a leader have breathing space and be able to just bring value to everything you do. So moving forward, I think in terms of time perspective, we really want to take this long-term view. I don't know what age you are and what you're watching. We do have probably a more of a youthful, younger audience, but there's definitely people that watch across different age brackets. And so I think we want to, if we're lucky, we live for 80 to 100 years. I know many countries' life expectancy is lower than that, but here in Australia, it's in the low to mid 80s. And, I'm only in my 20s at the moment, so that's 60 years away. So I think, with modern medicine, with good habits, healthier habits, we could be living for a long, long time. And so there's no point panicking about 1 month or one year of time lost because we worked on something that, we're not going to necessarily work on in the future. Look at how much you learned from that and look at more of the long-term view. And when you go into, roles and when you go into projects like this podcast is here for the long term. And so if I do miss 1 week, I don't have to beat myself up about it. of course, I want to drill in this discipline and this habit of podcasting weekly, and I've been successfully doing that for the past 3 months. But when we look at the long term, you can't beat yourself up for those little times where you lapsed. That's not to say don't deliberately do that. Do aim and do give yourself that structure, and do be consistent, because consistency will win every day of the week. Consistency will always win. So do be consistent. But I'm more talking about taking the long-term view and not necessarily beating ourselves up. If we've worked on a project that we feel like, okay, maybe that wasn't what I want to do, or maybe things went wrong, we need to learn from that. And so I think taking the long view of time, there's a season of building projects. There's a season of waiting for opportunities. There's a season of healing and connection. And there's a season also to accelerate and to put the foot on the pedal and say, okay, I'm going for it now. Yes, I'm saying yes to this opportunity. I'm saying yes to that. There's these seasons throughout life, and being able to judge what season you're in is really critical for your own personal development, and also for, I guess, having a peace in what you do and having a confidence in your calling and purpose. So know what season you're in. Are you in a season where you need to slow down? You need to focus on your health? Are you in a season where you need to look for a new opportunity? Are you in a season where you're just trying to build something slowly from scratch? Are you in a season of waiting and just holding where you are? Or are you in a season of, just recovering? And, there's all these different seasons, and you can describe them in different ways you want to, but just knowing where you sit in this time in life, and being able to move forward with purpose is really important. And linking things back to our calling will give you grounding and give you hope for the future. I'm going to wrap things up here. This has been a really a nice episode on time. And, time is something we all have equally. It's all given to us in the same format, 7 days a week, 24 hours in the day, 52 weeks in the year. And so really be intentional in how you use your time. Be intentional in taking time off. Be intentional, and as I mentioned, use those strategies in how you structure your calendar, in giving yourself that flexibility and room for growth. But also, be organized and do things on time, and develop this healthy relationship with time. Because if you can respect time, then it will respect you. If you can learn to, work to schedules, then they'll really set you up well for the future. But if you can also learn then to have a bit of flexibility, and room for that connection and personal human touch, then I think you get the best of both worlds, and you get that balance that I think we really need in leadership today, and that we can learn from different cultures. So thank you so much for joining in for episode 13 today. Really appreciate your time as always, and I hope you've got some value from today's podcast. Take care, and we'll see you next week.